Star Wars is struggling, and folks, despite what the media might tell you, you are not to blame. It is the mediocre writing, it is the terrible creation of stories that nobody wants to hear. At least, not at a level that can support what Star Wars once was. Today, we're going to reveal to you the declining ratings of the Star Wars franchise, the brand, and what it means for everyone behind a galaxy so far, far out of touch. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve. We love doing so. It's a passion of ours, even when it gets us in trouble with the drive-by mainstream media types. The journalist, well, they are screeching, they are angry, they are mad, folks. They are not having a good time because they are not glad that people are turning away from the Acolyte. They say that you all are the reason for the failure of this show. We've covered that in the past. It's going to grow. Why? Because they're going to try and get ahead of the narrative that it's Kathleen Kennedy's fault. They're going to blame you, and then when there are no new Star Wars shows, they're going to say, it's your fault. We served you up gruel, and you wouldn't eat the gruel, so you get no more gruel. You can't have anything at all. That's what they're going to say. All right, folks, let's dive in with a panel that you're going to love right now. The Acolyte, something that audiences are definitely not doing, folks. Take a look at this. This is out of thatparkplace.com. If you're not yet bookmarked the website, well, you should be. It's by John Trent. It says, confirmed the Acolyte performs worse than Ahsoka. Global minutes viewed less than Ahsoka's U.S. premiere viewership. Now, folks, we talked about this this morning in the video, but there's an additional angle to take on this, and specifically this gentleman over here who holds the top ad on the website, Valiant Renegade. He made a point that I did not make, and that's why everybody needs to go check out Valiant's video from this morning. But it's a point that we cannot miss today, and so we want to thank Valiant for doing this. But he has brought to our knowledge that when it comes to the Acolyte, this thing has something like 1/5 of the viewership of House of the Dragon. And so I just want to start there and just get everybody's thoughts on this. And in particular, there's sort of a meta-analysis that needs to happen as well. And that meta-analysis, and Culture, we'll start with you because you're at the top of the totem pole today, then we'll go to Lorena. But Culture, starting off with you, Disney for a very long time has had carte blanche when it comes to gaslighting the audience, the viewers, the investors. They get to say basically whatever they want. This is really something to see. Before we even get to the second episode, the mainstream media is now confirming what we've all been saying, which was, we looked at the numbers, we said there's no way that this viewership is good. We looked at the actual data, and we came away with this statement that, guys, these numbers actually are not positive whatsoever, despite what the headlines are blaring. Culture, what do you make of this world we live in now, where it's no longer The Last Jedi, where people were looking for a voice to tell the truth after The Last Jedi came out, and that built many channels. Today, we live in a world where, before we could even get to the second episode, Disney's being called out for this total disaster. What do you make of it, Culture?
Well, I think it speaks to the issue that we've all been talking about since The Last Jedi, the complete collapse of the ability to tell stories without inserting a bunch of politics into it. When you already know, because they've already told you what to expect in a show as far as the political, messaging and everything else that comes along with something, you're already turning off people. And I think one of the most important elements that Valiant even admits he left out of his video was that technically, if you include, the international audience for House of Dragon, that this show really had 1/10 the viewership of House of the Dragon premiere. So I thought that was an interesting thing that he accidentally cut from his videos. So if you're not following him on Twitter, you missed that little nuance as well.
Well, fantastic, because I did not know that, Culture. You're updating me. I was doing show prep. So say that again for the audience so they can hear that, because that's an update from the video he put out earlier. He's done a great job, by the way, the last 2 days. What was it, Culture?
He said specifically in his Twitter release that he accidentally left something on the cutting room floor when he put his video together, saying that when you include the international numbers of House of the Dragon, not just those born here in the United States, which is what we've been talking about. Disney Plus, of course, counts all their numbers. Then the House of the Dragon, Disney's latest series, only had 1/10 the viewership of the premiere episode of this latest show. this latest, what do you call it, the Acolyte thing. So
Abomination.
whatever it is. But I think it, like I said, I mean, to return to the original question, I think it just speaks volumes to just the complete apathy that the audience has, which, as we've discussed here before in other places, is something that you don't want to have exist in a franchise. You don't want your audience to be apathetic towards it. And I think that these numbers, which we still are doubting, are accurate, are not going to bear out when we get external measurement tools like Nielsen and others. In fact, I think you made a video today, Pro, that there's a decent chance that that this will fall out of the Disney Plus will fall out of the top 5 streaming services.
Well, I mean, everything is indicating that it's going to. Tubi is within 0.1% of overtaking Disney Plus. Tubi has been rising. By the way, Tubi comes with a price tag for Fox Corp of about $400 million. Disney's streaming endeavors have cost them about $100 billion. They're about $30 billion in the hole. That could get worse with Hulu coming up. Lorena, one of the fascinating things about the new, what would you call this? The new journalism landscape, the new media landscape, is that because we can get information so quickly, places like Salon are being left in the dust.
Oh, Lord, not this flag.
Days ago, by Melanie McFarlane, the Acolyte bait and switch angered some, but many more kept watching. That's why it works. And of course, it's talking about spoilers, folks. You can't spoil what's already spoiled. It's talking about the fact that Trinity dies in the first 7 minutes. But Lorena, here's the deal on this. There was a time when these kinds of websites, they could take confidence in knowing that they would be protected. And so they could put out whatever nonsense narrative they wanted to do. It didn't matter. We wouldn't have a voice. Now I think pressure from channels such as ours, Midnight's Edge, Valiant Renegade, Culture Casino, yours, it's putting pressure on the mainstream where they can't do this anymore. And now it's putting authors such as on Salon in a really hard place. We'll talk about this more with Disney Parks. Lorena, what's your take on the current landscape of media?
I think it's extremely interesting and very beneficial that the barrier to entry of controlling information has been ripped down, especially when it comes to independent journalism, or like Andrew Breitbart would say, citizen journalism. So long as you have a camera, internet access, a phone, whatever, you are an independent voice and you're not beholden to the media. So when that message was controlled by the gatekeepers, and you all know who you are out there, to craft the narrative, that's all people thought is what they could get. But then when you get these independent voices like this channel, like Midnight's Edge, like Cultures, and so many others, people are kind of like, these are people like me, saying this kind of stuff. And they're not only actively contradicting what the mainstream is going to tell you, but the mainstream is actually concerned about it, which is why they fight so hard against it. And since the age of cancellation is over, it pretty much is over. And all of that venture capital is like, screw that. We're not giving you any more money. Now they're left out there. And it's like the death throes that's going on with them. They know that they're losing. They know that people will go and watch someone on YouTube, not for nothing, but this is kind of the stereotype, someone on YouTube on their couch ranting about what they don't like or do like. And people
Lorena, don't you make
there.
Jonas feel uncomfortable about his couch situation. That's cruel, Lorena. It's cruel, I tell you.
I like my couch.
I'm bottom row. You're not.
Your couch likes you, Jonas. Honest, it does. It was telling me so just the other day.
Better. It cost enough. Anyway.
Now show me where the couch hurt you.
The lower
Is it
back.
the Married with Children couch? Because that couch is cool.
Well, bottom row, I know you guys have plenty to say, and you're not bottom in terms of importance. Hop in here. What do you guys make of this situation where before we even get to the second episode, the Disney narrative has been destroyed?
Well, first of all, everything Lorena said times 12 about citizen journalism and the fact that everybody's got a camera on their hip. There were political events that we never would have known happened that got seen because somebody was there with their phone to take a picture of it and changed events. So that's one part of it. But the second part is How we keep score has changed. Used to be box office was pretty simple. You spent X, you took in Y, you figured out the ratio as far as ad pub versus production, all that, and you had a number. But when the number is not butts in seats that you can count because they paid for each seat, but butts in something called memberships, that gets to be a different scorecard altogether when you spend this kind of money. And here's what it's done. Ahsoka came out at a time when people were really starting to wake up to this and really getting upset with what's happening with Star Wars. And a lot of people who were subscribers, because they were already falling off, well, I'll give them this last chance. I'll watch that and see if it's any good. And when they got mad because it wasn't, they didn't just get mad and go to the set and turn to another channel. They got mad and turned off the whole darn subscription. Well, that meant that as time went on, during even an 8-episode season or 10-episode, it got worse and worse and worse, because it not only meant people weren't watching it anymore and its numbers were down, it meant they weren't watching the whole channel and they weren't paying for it. They were cutting the cord. But I think, and if everybody here, as much as I love you, I would love your take on this, Andre, because this is something I mentioned on a show with Pro a couple of days ago. I think with this one, it's almost the reverse. I think with this one, there's lots of people who didn't watch the first 2 episodes because they'd already given up. And when they're hearing all of this controversy about what's in them and what's about to be in the one tonight that we're told, they're going to watch tonight and tomorrow and the next day more than they did the first one, just to say they couldn't really be doing that, could they? Is that possible? In other words, the worse it gets, the more the viewership might start to bump back up a little, because people are so interested in it from an issue point of view, not from an entertainment point of view.
As Andre gets to weigh in, I just want to say, Lou, can we call this the Honey Boo Boo effect for Star Wars? Is that where we are now?
It could very well
Man.
be. It's certainly. I tell you what, it's similar to if you think about TV of the past. It's all the people who tuned in at the beginning on American Idol, not to see a great singer, but to see all the screw up, awful audition tapes. They're looking for the bad stuff, not the good stuff.
Fantastically well said. There's a story I have about that later in the show I might tell. Andre, you have been queried by Mr. Ghost. What say you?
I think that The Acolyte is what you might call a franchise killer. And I think it was always going to be. And I think most fans were prepared for that. I mean, all of us here, that have been covering this, we know what The Acolyte was and what it was always going to be. And so did all of our audience. And not just through us, but anyone paying attention in the realm of Star Wars, they knew that already. Now add that early awareness to a generally demoralized and browbeaten Star Wars fan base, which gets more and more browbeaten for every new release. I mean, just look at Ahsoka. Ahsoka was a flop. It was a flop in terms of viewership. It was a creative flop. It was a flop certainly with fan reviews. It was a flop in how many actually saw it through the end. And that was Ahsoka. Ahsoka was a popular character from the animated series, brought in a whole new generation of fans. Where were those? Ahsoka was the series that ruined Thrawn. That thing, it did exactly what the Obi-Wan Kenobi series did before. It killed hype. Obi-Wan, that was kind of like their big opportunity to bring fans back again, and they blew it completely. Because again, it was another example of the wrong series. Now, this thing here, The Acolyte, it has nothing going for it. Absolutely nothing. If you are a Star Wars fan and you see the trailer for this, what is it here for you? There's absolutely nothing. It's a showcase in everything that unfortunately has been made a stereotype for bad entertainment that no one wants. Literally everything is personified in this series. I mean, and what was really damaging is the South Park episode, you know, the one with the meme, put a chick in it, make her gay. What's the selling point of this? Well, there's a chick in it and she's gay. Oh, and there's more than one. So this is basically lesbian force witches in space. That's
making butt baby evil twins.
Yeah. You know something about episode 3? I don't, but yeah, that sounds perfect. So we are now also dealing with butt pages. Fantastic. Get better and better.
They make Jabba
This
look
is
good, Andre. They make Jabba look good.
This is kind of like the point that this series right here, it's a franchise killer. Now, it wouldn't have been if everything else was okay. If all the other series had been fine, and this was, you know, how we already have a Star Wars holiday special, and this was the Pride special of Star Wars. If that's all this was, it would have been fine. It wouldn't have mattered. Okay, fine. Here is something that we do for the quota. Some little thing that doesn't really matter for the bigger thing. But no, this is kind of like given the importance of a new movie almost in terms of how it is being addressed and how it's even allegedly changing or retroactively changing all of Star Wars. And when the franchise has been as damaged as it is already, then the Acolyte is a franchise killer. And I don't know that it's going to be a very difficult for the Star Wars franchise to make any kind of a comeback after this, because when you just go through beat for beat everything that happens in it, I mean, I don't know that the people at Babylon B could have done a better job doing a woke parody of Star Wars than what we have here. I'm serious. I mean, just look at in episode 2, where we basically see like the first white person in the show, and as the critical drinker pointed out in his review, I'd really thought about it. It was like, white man, you hurt my feelings. Like I'm victimized by you. Go kill yourself. I mean, that's kind of like the subtext that was there.
Andre, there are only 2 white dudes in the first 2 episodes. One is a crazy convict, and the other is a guy who's so riddled with guilt that he decides to drink the poison apple green goo and self-delete. So, Andre, I want to ask you something, though, because you are uniquely qualified to answer this. Midnight's Edge has been covering the downfall of Star Wars ever since The Last Jedi. I remember tuning into Midnight's Edge to hear about what was going on with The Last Jedi and with the backlash. Have we finally reached the end of this? Is this the culmination of all of it? And specifically, as you answer this, Andre, because, you know, looking back over the last nearly decade of Kathleen Kennedy, you know, this is a train wreck where people feel like the voices and ideals and ideas of a Leslie Headland are promoted, and the ideals and ideas of a Gina Carano are slammed. And I think the vast majority of the audience feels like they can identify with Gina Carano, and they have nothing in common with Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant.
I agree completely with that. I mean, you just have to look at the values on display here. They are not representative of anything other than but the smallest of minorities. These are not mainstream views in any way, shape, or form. This is kind of like what I'm saying, that this would have been okay for a Pride special, but the kind of views which are presented here are something that maybe a single digit of the worldwide population in terms of percentage can identify with. If you think that this thing isn't appealing in the US, this thing has no appeal anywhere, in anything.
Well, one of the most humorous polls we've done in a while, which is worse, audience, almost 300 votes in on this one. 56% say The Acolyte is the worst thing they've seen so far. 33% say The Last Jedi, and only 10% say poor little Honey Boo Boo back from the mid-2000s was worse than these. So that's where you are, Star Wars. That's where you are, Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy, you are riding below Honey Boo Boo.
Let's carry it just one little step further before we go on. This is, I would suggest, not about the particular sexual politics of this show. And let me tell you why I say that. You know, what you just said, Andre, if it was a special. In TV, for forever, all the years I made 500 television shows, you always had the tonight, a very special episode of, when a comedy would do a serious story, maybe even about homosexuality. It's not that. Although that certainly is why there's so little interest, as you said, especially worldwide. It's that it's not a trigger warning message at the beginning. It's not, this is a very special. It's the sneering pride, literally pride of it. It's the attitude of, we're going to put this in you, and if you don't like it, you should. And it's your problem, not our problem. People
Exactly.
don't watch entertainment to be lectured to. They just don't. I don't care what it's in favor of. If you did the same thing and made it all about something that everybody agreed with, but hit you over the head with it the way these things do, in a context of something that makes no basic drama sense, that simple questions like, how come if they're twins and they haven't seen each other in however many years, they've got the same haircut? Little dumb stuff, normal everyday stuff that they don't care about because all they care about is the message. That's what really, it's the palpable contempt for the audience
Well,
that turns us off.
Obviously, Rick James is very popular in a galaxy far, far away.
And don't forget, Jonas, that Jedi and Jedi adjacent can take a lightsaber to the abdomen and be just fine. But gosh darn it, you give them a butter knife to the boob and they're down for the count. All right, folks,
Well,
there
let's
would
be
be
fair.
boobs right here if we did not hit these super chats. So, Andre, your final thought, and then Jonas pull up the super chat.
Yes, just one final thing, and that is I'm going to push back a little bit, Lou, right there, on if there had been values that more people agreed with, as in just sensible humanist values, the kind
Yes.
that always characterized Star Trek, for instance, back in the original day. I hate it when people say Star Trek was always woke. No, Star Trek was always humanist. And it
Yeah.
promoted humanist values. And you can say the exact same thing about the original trilogy of Star Wars as well, because it was made in the aftermath of World War II. It was made while the Soviet Union was the evil empire. So you kind of like have that duality going right there against of freedom fighters fighting against an oppressive force. What doesn't work right now is that now the people making the series, the values they oppose, they do it from the point of view where they are the oppressive force. And that's exactly what we see with Gina Carano as well. However much she was smeared, when people look at what she was actually saying, she was just expressing fairly universal attitudes that people can agree with no matter where in the world they are or where they normally stand politically. Whereas the values which are opposed here are the values of the oppressor.
Yeah.
That's another thing that really doesn't compute with them, or that does not align with the values of the vast majority of the movie-going and TV series watching audience worldwide, and it makes this series all the more dislikable.
And
That's
when you
right.
talked about the evil empire, the subjects of, the victims of, the slaves of the evil empire agree with those human values too, even if they're not legally able to express them when they are under those conditions. That's how you know they're universal. When even, the victims are on your side, not their master's side.
The funny thing
which
is, those victims warn against entertainment just like this, because they've
Yes.
seen it before.
Yes,
That's right.
this is the epitome of propaganda from an all-powerful state.
Well,
It
I
doesn't
thank
ask
you
you
all.
what you want, it tells you what you should want.
And ladies and gentlemen, another video of excellence in the can. What a pleasure it is to have the opportunity to share our time with you. Thank you so much for that. And if you enjoyed your time with us, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. Drop a comment right on down below. Let us know your thoughts. And folks, in spite and despite of everything they're doing to entertainment, we say to you, get out there and make your own stuff. Start creating. And wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.